Karen from Countyfairgrounds USA, countyfairgrounds.net. Welcome to today's podcast.
I have on the phone with me today Scott Kaniewskipr from the PRCA. He's a PRCA coordinator and PR person. So, how are you, Mr. Scott?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Karen?
It's not raining.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, I know the PRCA is an old organization and it's been around for a long time. And I remember I listened to my interview from 2009 a little while ago, and they had a really weird name at one time. They were called the Turtles?
Yes, the Cowboy Turtle Association.
That's just really weird. Yeah, that's just really weird. Okay. Anyway, so what does and then when did they get their official name, and how long have they been in Colorado Springs?
I believe we moved to the Springs in 1979, and in 1975, the Rodeo Cowboys Association became the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. And since then, we have been Pro Rodeo.
Okay, Pro Rodeo is having problems these days, just like all the other fairs and festivals in the country are. There are some rodeos going on right now. I think there's one in Utah, right?
Yeah, actually, there's going to be a couple this weekend. There's one going on right now, the Vernal, Utah, and then this weekend, Elko Rodeo, which is in Elko, Utah, will be going on. So we had a couple in Utah, a couple others spread throughout. We had a big weekend over 4th of July. During that week, we had 14 rodeos in various states. So we're getting back to where we want to be, but, you know, as it is with all other sports, it's kind of slow going at the moment.
Yeah, well, we have a pandemic, unfortunately. So basically, that Dino Rodeo thing in Utah is a big thing. So I have to ask, and people I'm sure are going to want to know, how are you handling the virus situation?
So it's each of our rodeos is run by a rodeo committee, and we're essentially the governing body of the sport, or the sanctioning body of the sport. So it's up to the rodeo committees to work with local and state officials, and that's kind of who helps determine what they're going to do with their rodeo, whether they need to cancel it or postpone it, or whether they're going to have it. What people need to do to stay safe, what kind of measures they're going to bring in, and so that's left up to the committees. They are always welcome to ask the PRCA for guidelines or suggestions, and we're there willing to help them, but it comes down to, the local and state officials and governments are the ones who determine exactly what needs to be done.
Okay, so the PRCA has been around for a while. We've established that. So what's new and exciting with the PRCA these days?
One of the great things is this is the first year we've been on the Cowboy Channel, and we just last month released the PRCA on Cowboy Channel Plus app. So it's an app where people can go to and stream rodeos. They can also catch live rodeos on the Cowboy Channel, which is on both cable and satellite providers. That's one of the big things for us. And I believe it was last week, over 4th of July, between the TV station and the app, we were broadcasting or streaming 6 different rodeos. So it's exciting, so people could bounce around and watch different rodeos depending on which one they wanted to pay attention to.
Yeah, that sounds COVID safe. It does. So app is
watching from home, you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
That app, is it available both on Apple and Android?
It is, yes, and I believe it's $9.99 a month, or you can pay for a full year at $89.99, and end up saving yourself a little bit of money there. So
that's actually a PRCA invention?
It's actually it was built by the Cowboy Channel, but it is in coordination with the PRCA.
That's pretty cool. All right, so that's a nice thing for people.
We're real excited about it. Before now, people could pretty much just catch us on CBS Sports, and so, but this has opened us up to a little more viewership, and we're on much more than we've ever been in the history of the PRCA. So it's a great time for fans to be able to catch us live on television or on streaming on the internet.
So basically, how does a rodeo or suppose if somebody wants to have a rodeo, how do they get to be a PRCA rodeo?
So we have a bunch of kind of rules and regulations, and they have to apply to become a rodeo or to be sanctioned by the PRCA. Otherwise, they can have their rodeo, which would be whether it's under a different sanctioning body or just an amateur rodeo. Otherwise, they go through the steps in the process, and once everything's cleared, we sanction them, and they're able to host a rodeo, and their money that they pay out there to all the winners would count toward the PRCA Ram World Standings.
That would be the Wrangler NFR in Las Vegas?
So the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas is the finals, and that's 10 days of rodeo. It's 10 nights, I should say, of rodeo. Each rodeo is kind of like an individual rodeo, but all that money there counts toward the world standings, and usually the guys who do the best at the NFR come out as the world champions. But the money throughout the course of the season is added toward those standings too. So it's those are kind of like, it's essentially like our Super Bowl of rodeo. It's the finals, and that's where the guys make a lot of money when they get out there.
I think the guys make a lot of money, and they work really hard for it anyway.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Our Cowboys make they make a good living at it if they do well, but unlike other athletes, they actually have to pay to play. So they actually pay their entry fees to get into rodeos, and if they don't win any money, they actually come out losing money. So it's in their best interest to try and win, and that's where it helps them get down the road, travel to the next rodeo, and try and get to those finals in Vegas.
And this is a young man's sport, right?
Yes, it is. You see a lot of, especially when it comes to the rough stock competitors. So that would be the bareback riders, saddle bronc riders, and the bull riders. Those guys have it takes a toll on their bodies getting on the backs of those animals, and they put forth their best effort, and they can definitely get injured. But a lot of them just keep on pushing down the road because they know they need to get to that next rodeo and try and win some more money. But on the flip side, you also see guys that are a little bit older in the roping events, especially when it comes to team roping or steer roping. The team roping, you see plenty of 40-year-olds, and in the steer roping, you see guys up into their 50s and 60s. So it just depends on the event, but when it comes to the rough stock, you do see those younger guys competing.
So the PRCA is primarily in the United States?
Yes, that's correct. We also have rodeos in Canada and a few in Mexico. So it's North America, but mostly here in the U.S.
I always get curious when I talk to you people who go into these different things, and you're really into this rodeo stuff. Are you? Do you ride?
No, I do not ride. No, but I've become, over the last 3 years now, I've been here 3 years with PRCA, a fan of the sport, and quite, I hope, knowledgeable of the sport, since we have to write about it for our magazine, Pro Rodeo Sports News, and we go cover rodeos on occasion, and the rest of the time we're talking to the guys and the Cowboys and the guys going down the road about what they're doing and how they're competing and what's given them such a good season.
Okay, these Cowboys, how do they get into a PRCA rodeo to ride?
They have to be PRCA members in order to compete, and so what they do is they initially pay a permit fee and get on their permit card, and once they've established themselves and made enough money there, then they can buy or purchase their PRCA card, and they become a member. And from there, they decide what rodeos they want to go to, and they'll enter those rodeos, and that's where they get to compete. So it's really, that's one of the most interesting dynamics of rodeo, is how these guys decide where they want to go. Because, whereas other sports will have one event a weekend maybe, these guys may try to get to 4 to 6 different rodeos over the course of 3 to 4 days. It's a fascinating aspect, and I mean, when it comes to summertime and you're having rodeos all across the country, guys are driving, 10, 15, sometimes 20 hours a day just to get to the next rodeo, make sure they get in there and have a shot at winning some money.
Okay, now tell our listeners what goes on at an average rodeo.
Oh, you got all your events. So at most rodeos, you're going to have bareback riding, steer wrestling, team roping, saddle bronc riding, tie-down roping, barrel racing, and bull riding. And a number of our rodeos have started to add breakaway roping, too, so that's kind of cool to see. And then, of course, you're going to get some clown acts to entertain. You're going to get plenty of good music. And as you know, a lot of them are in conjunction with fairs. And so it's just a good time for people to go and hang out, watch a little sporting event, and just enjoy themselves with the family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've talked to some of the rodeo clowns. It's appears to me to be quite a dangerous profession.
Oh, being a rodeo clown?
Yeah.
It certainly can be. That and being a bullfighter, yes. The bullfighters, similar to the clowns in some ways, but the bullfighters are the guys that actually try and distract the bull to get him away from the cowboy after the cowboy gets off the bull. So that they're in essence they're saving the cowboys' lives every time they're out there. So it's really a cool thing for those bullfighters to do, and they're willing to put their lives on the line or their bodies on the line to make sure the cowboys, the performers, are safe.
Each of these individual categories are judged by a pair of judges. Where do the judges come from?
They also come from the PRCA. So the judges go through a process in order to become a judge and in order to go to and judge a rodeo. So that's a process they have to go through, and some of them are former competitors themselves. So they have most of them have a pretty good rodeo background, and from there they get out there and they're in the arena too, right there with the cowboys.
So how much money do these cowboys make now?
Well, it depends, and again, like we said before, it depends on how good they are. Some of them, I believe last year, our world champion bull rider made over $400,000. But some of the guys who don't, some of our local cowboys, if you will, or as we call them, circuit cowboys, they may only make a few $100s or a few $1,000s. So it depends. I mean, the variety or the range of the payouts for these cowboys just varies greatly. But one of the coolest things is those circuit cowboys can go and have a really big weekend, and maybe he wins, $8,000 to $10,000 at one rodeo, and all of a sudden he decides, I'm going to try and rodeo a little more, and now he's trying to compete to get into the national finals in Vegas. So there's a pretty good variation there. A lot of our cowboys that become world champions make over $200,000 after winning their world title in Vegas. Like I said, Sage Kimsey, who's won 6 consecutive bull riding world championships in the PRCA, made over $400,000 last year. A couple of our guys this year at the American in Arlington, Texas, went through a qualification process and ended up winning the whole rodeo, and they made over $600,000 apiece. So that's rare, but that was very cool to see. And I mean, those guys were obviously quite excited because that's some life-changing money for them.
I was talking to the PBR not so long ago. Do you have doctors on site?
Yeah, there's usually EMTs on site at every rodeo to help treat any cowboys who might need that. We've also got our Justin Sports Medicine team at rodeos, which are usually volunteer, doctors who are working on a volunteer basis to kind of help out and be on site just in case the guy needs to get hurt, or more often than not, in case the guy needs treatment. If he wants to have his arm wrapped up with some tape or needs just a little tending to, we've got guys there at the rodeo, guys and gals there to help out with that.
Okay, so for the NFR, how does one of these cowboys, say they're a bronc rider, how do they get to go to the NFR in Vegas?
Yeah, so in order to do that, you have to finish in the top 15 in the world standings when the regular season ends. And our regular season runs from October 1st of one year to September 30th of the following year. So right now we're about 2.5 months away from the 2020 season ending. And then the guys who finish in the top 15 in each category qualify for the Vegas finals. And while the season ends September 30th, the finals are 10 days in December in Las Vegas. So the guys have a couple of months there to get ready if they've qualified and kind of rest up and heal up and get prepared to go for 10 straight nights of rodeo.
Sounds exhausting, actually.
What's amazing is there's, granted, this is a pandemic year, so we had a couple of months off, just like everybody else. But when it's a regular year, there is no off time. There's no real off season. There's a little bit of downtime in maybe October, November, December, but I mean these guys are going from January to the end of September hard, and they're still going in October and November. You know, there is no off season. They go, you know, they may go for a month or almost 6 weeks sometimes without going home because they're traveling so much. So it is exhausting, and you just look at and kind of marvel at these guys at what they're willing to do to, you know, compete in the sport that they love so much.
How long is an average cowboy's shelf life? Curious.
Oh, that's a good question. I think it depends on the event you're in, of course. The rough stock, you know, when you're riding on an animal and trying to stay on that beast for 8 seconds, those guys' shelf lives are quite a bit shorter. You see those guys compete into their early 30s, maybe mid-30s. But when you're a roper, you can see those guys extend longer. We had mentioned earlier team ropers. Those guys will go into, you know, can go into their 40s. A lot of tie-down ropers, as they get older, they may switch over to steer roping, and those are the ones where they're competing into their 60s. So it varies on the event for sure.
Okay, Scott, let's finish up by asking you what's up and coming that people should really want to watch.
Yeah, we mentioned Vernal would be pretty exciting. I believe it's in 2 weeks. We've got Spanish Fork, Utah, and Deadwood, South Dakota. Dodge City, Kansas is coming up. Phillipsburg, Kansas. There's a lot of these Pro Rodeo Tour rodeos that are coming up. They're going to be streamed live or be broadcast on the Cowboy Channel, and all of those are going to have some pretty good payouts, which is, you know, with 2 months of no rodeo because of the pandemic, any sort of money these guys can scrape together to win is really going to help them in trying to get into that top 15 to qualify for the national finals. So like every year, it's going to be quite a scramble that last month of September to see who's going to get in, but even more so, it's going to be real interesting just because of that pandemic, you know, where there's not guys who are out front so far that no one's going to catch them other than a couple. So that mad dash to the end to see who makes that top 15 in each category is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Sounds good. Okay, so tell us once again where they can get this app at.
Yeah, you can just download it, like you said, Google Play or at Apple. It's if you go to or just go to cowboychannelplus.com. That's probably the easiest way to go. You can just sign up for it right there, and that'll get you going if you want to watch some rodeo and some live events. Plenty of highlights there, and a little bit of fashion too. Okay, I've enjoyed talking to you, and let's go rodeo. Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Karen. I appreciate the time. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.